Welcome to the Coach Toolbox. I'm your host, Dr. Ajay Nangalia, a leadership coach and counselor. This channel supports your professional and personal development as a leader with research-based and practice-focused learning. And we bring you the best career and life advice from guests who've been there and done that successfully. And now, our session today. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this show. And today's show is extremely important for each one of us as leaders because we are going to talk today about why successful leaders must understand finance. You heard it right. We're going to talk about finance, something that would normally scare many of us away. But to help us through that fear, we have an amazing speaker, and she is Sangeeta Sumesh. So Sangeeta is an executive director and the CFO of Dun & Bradstreet. She's a chartered accountant and a management accountant. But here's the key. Unlike typical finance people that we have stereotypes of or that we know, she's a professional speaker. She's a high performance business coach with an ICF credential. And get this, she's the author of many bestsellers. The first one is called What the Finance. I think the F should be silent so that it sort of resonates with what the next book is A Glance at the Unknown. And the third one is The Power of High Performance Coaching. So she holds these portfolios and she's found time to write these books. And here's the key. You can check her out on her YouTube channel, on her website, and her LinkedIn profile. And I'll put up links for all of these in our podcast description. So Sangeeta, welcome.
Thanks a lot, Ajay. It's such a pleasure to, be part of your podcast.
Thank you. I wish we were on this on video too, because once again, our typical stereotype of finance guys are they're very sort of serious and boring, and they don't smile. And guys, if you see Sangeeta, and I encourage you to see her on her YouTube channel, she's such a smiley, happy, lovely person, and I'm trusting that that energy will come through. So enough about me now, and let's just get directly into it. So Sangeeta, many leaders appreciate that to function effectively and succeed at senior levels, they must have and they should be able to apply a working knowledge of finance concepts. Yet many of them from support functions, operations, are very uncomfortable with finance. Could you speak to this observation a little bit?
Yes. So, Ajay, firstly, good that you actually picked up this aspect because it is quite true that many people do get uncomfortable, technologically or, technically in their domains. They may be experts and they would know every little aspect, they're really the champions in their domains. But yes, when it comes to finance, they do tend to get a bit uncomfortable. But from my perspective, a successful leader cannot afford to be uncomfortable. I'll tell you why. But before that, you have to answer a question for me. Tell me,
Sure.
why does a business exist?
To make money?
Absolutely. So, I say finance is the backbone of any industry, however big or small, whichever vertical, whichever industry. Finance is the key because that's the core reason why any sort of business exists. So, for a leader, he has to think in terms of finance, and then he has to think through on what the financial impact can be. So if this little seed is planted into the any leader's head or even any aspiring leader's head, I think then it makes a whole lot of difference, right? So I would say like the finance dream of any leader. I'm going to sing a little song here for you. So it goes like this. Baba, hey leader, do you have more bags? Yes sir, 3 bags full. One as profits, one for my team, and one as reserves for a rainy day. So, this would be, yeah, so you see, that's exactly how a leader needs to think because first you need to make profits for your organization. Second, you need to have make money for yourself and the team, right? Only then your team is going to be really motivated, and they're going to give in their best. So you need to make money. And third, and the most important thing, which I always drive across, everywhere I go, is the importance of having reserves. I mean, look at the current times. If you have reserves, you can actually sustain through this. And I know many businesses and many organizations that have not had sufficient reserves, and they are struggling now. So this I have always been enforcing even before the current thing. So if organizations can keep this in the back of their mind, I think any leader is going to be like, yeah, I made it through successfully.
So essentially, it starts with changing the perspective. And what you're saying is many times operations or support leaders forget the fact that they're also there to really make money for all of them, for all of us. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely right. Yeah.
All right. And what a nice song. Thank you.
Thank you.
So okay, we first is to change this perspective and bring the fact that money is something that we need to be able to do, and not only make profits but also to have reserves. And I think works at an organization level, and so true for us at personal level also, for so many reasons. But why is there this fear when it comes to working with financial data?
Right. So, what I feel? Fear, yes, there is one reason. Then there's also lack of interest, or, there's no keenness, or it's like the interpretation, they don't interpret the numbers, what are the numbers actually trying to depict, and, what are they speaking to you? It could be a host of all such reasons. I'm not sure where it stems from, because it could be different things for different people. But I think the underlying thing could be the mindset, right? It's the kind of mindset, it's like, oh no, finance is not really meant for me, it's something too difficult. Or uh, it's probably their beliefs that they've tuned themselves. It could be either coming from the fact that money is not good, or it's not something that I need to work on, because I have a finance department, it's their duty to take care. Yes, the finance department is there to take care, undoubtedly, but then some basic things you ought to know as the leader, the leader of the organization, or leader of your vertical, of your department, whatever it be. Some basic aspects is extremely essential that you need to know. So how does one actually get over this? So I say you need to do a shift in your mindset, shift in your attitude, and shift in your beliefs. So once you're able to create the shift, then I think you can put aside the fears, the interest, the keenness, interpretation, all that, because in reality the fear aspect is not true. It's just that one needs to take that first step and make a little bit of effort to understand. Then I think it makes it a whole lot easier. So if you also notice, yeah, any leader, they can actually make or break an organization. A leader, based on the kind of decisions they make, the kind of demands that they have, and the kind of deeds that they do, that's what is going to impact the organization holistically. So if the leader can look into these three D's, that is decisions, demands, and deeds, I think it would help a lot from the financial perspective as well.
So you said decisions, demands, and
Deeds, the actions, the
deeds.
deeds, yeah.
Okay, I get it. Decisions, demands, and the deeds. All right, I like that. And so it's so true. I think the mindset sometimes can become a stumbling block, like, oh, I'm only supposed to do HR, or I'm only supposed to do infrastructure, or I'm only supposed to write code, or I'm just quality. And somehow we get, we don't see the big picture. We just only see our little piece of the jigsaw puzzle. So perhaps a starting point to shift this mindset would be to understand why we need to develop this ability to understand finance and numbers, especially as leaders.
Yes. Yes. So let me share two real life examples here with you. So, in one particular organization, there was a person who was extremely good in the technical aspect. He was heading the technology arm, in his domain, and he would know every little thing, and he was like a star performer. And then there was a position that was opened up as a CEO because the current CEO had moved out, and this person was shortlisted. And then, because of his achievements in the technology division, everybody, unanimously voted that he becomes the CEO. So he had become the CEO, and unfortunately, he was not really a numbers person. So what had happened every little time in his progress thereafter, during board meetings, and when the other stakeholders used to question him, the basics of finance was a big roadblock for him. He wouldn't be able to understand and answer exactly in relation to what the stakeholders are asking from a finance perspective. Whereas anything in the technical domain, like, he would be like so hands on, and so impressive his answers used to be. But here, this was actually becoming a big roadblock. And I think after about a year or something, they decided he was better off as a technical person than as a CEO. So you see, basic little things, you just focusing on your domain, then your growth actually could get stunted. I mean, it depends on you. If you're happy in where you are, that's perfectly fine. But I'm only trying to drive across the importance of understanding finance and the numbers, because that's when you have like an edge over the rest if you want to, like, looking at seriously growing in your career. That is one example. Another example I'd like to tell you is another person uh, who had limited experience, but and even his education, I mean, his education was good but nothing very fancy, but an extremely hands-on person, especially when it comes to financial stuff. So all his presentations and everything that he used to do to his bosses and his stakeholders was basically driven on financial numbers. How the performance was, what was the kind of money they made, how much is the growth, and every aspect, considering the numbers and the financial aspect. And this person was like, the apple of the eye of everybody, because he was exactly giving to people what they were looking for. See, any investor or any stakeholder that you look at, all they are interested is in the performance. I mean, you say performance, it is the financial performance of the business. So once you're able to actually speak the same language to them, then it becomes a whole lot easier for you to grow and, in your career, grow the organization, and then end of the day, you feel so elated about it. So I think that's where the difference is, once you're able to understand and produce things. So I always say, your financial decision making is very important. See, we're all humans, and end of the day, I know we tend to make decisions based on emotions. We tend to make emotional decisions, which is fine, but you must be aware of the financial repercussions that would have, right? So what sort of financial impact that would have on the organization, what sort of financial risks are there, and how exactly are you mitigating it as a leader? I think these aspects are very important. So once you're able to kind of address this and put all these things together, then it would make a whole lot of a difference.
Yes, so true, because many times, in my work with my clients, one of the things that really is a key requirement from them by the organization is that they must be able to talk the language of business, and they seem quite at sea when it comes to that ask. And the funny thing is, these are all engineers, so they are familiar with numbers, or they have done MBA way back whenever, yet they really struggle with using this data in real life. So how else will this knowledge help them contribute now as senior leaders? Because that's one thing I'm really struggling, is to drive home the concept that senior leadership competency is your familiarity and comfort with now working with numbers.
Right. So it's very important, like I said, to project things from a financial perspective. From a technical angle, or any other perspective, it may seem everything is fine, but end of the day, how is it going to impact the business? That needs to be highlighted. One is the impact on the business. It could be even like a headcount, so anything to do with numbers, what sort of impact it has, and then of course what sort of impact it has on the margins, what sort of impact on the bottom line, right? So all these aspects need to know. And if the leader foresees any particular risk, then they need to highlight that. What is the probability of the risk, and how are they planning to mitigate that risk? And that apart, once they speak about the profit and the kind of money, or it could even be the cash flow and any aspect of finance, thereby what you're doing is you're actually projecting your own self, your own capabilities, right? And that's how the organization is going to look at you, and the world at large is going to look at your business that way. So that way it's very important, and definitely it helps in your appraisal, right? Your own growth, because they know that yes, you know what the business is all about, and thereby you gain a lot of respect, and you individually get a lot of self satisfaction. You feel a sense of accomplishment, like yes, I have kind of grown my business, or I have grown my margins, I've grown my profits, I've grown by headcount, I've opened so many more branches, I have grown in territories, newer geographies. So on the whole, this is the base. Finance is the foundation on which your business actually tends to grow. So that, if you're able to look at and understand any leader, then I think it makes a whole lot of difference to one individually, and then again, I think that will help them overcome their fears and the dislike for finance and all of those things. So I think that is what is the key.
Okay. So I'm sure our listeners are saying, all right, we are willing to understand and we appreciate what you're saying. But now, where do I start? So, what are some of the main aspects of finance, or what are some financial metrics that I need to start focusing on? Yeah. So tell me some starting points.
Right. So let me give you a real life example here again. So there's this manufacturing organization, and about a year back, right? What the organization wanted from the leaders and everybody was just the top line growth. So everybody in the organization, their only focus was to drive sales. So how much percentage have you done? How much have you achieved more than your budgeted sales numbers, and how much have you grown? This was the only line of discussion. So this was actually about 2 years back. Then a year back, what had happened, their business was kind of hit by the little bit of the slowdown in the economy and stuff like that. So from there, the next thing the organization started looking was, it was no longer the focus on sales but on cost reduction. So what were the actions that they were doing to reduce cost? That was the core discussion. So all the leaders, I mean, finance or non-finance, everybody were like just focusing on to see how to reduce the cost, right? And then of course now the current situation, the lockdown and everything. So the focus now entirely changed to cash, because you see, cash is king, cash is like oxygen, that's what I say, your business can't be without cash. So the entire focus went on to cash. So everybody had to focus on the cash flows, to see how much of cash reserves they were able to get, and then to speeden up the collections from wherever that was possible. So from time to time, the organization's demands, the way they were looking at finance kept changing, and that is what actually flows on. It all flows from the top. So it really depends on what your organization is aligned to. But having said that, I think by and large, all organizations want to look at the top line, to see how you're growing in terms of your profits, your margins, and of course the cash. So these three are like the basic aspects of finance which everybody needs to take care. And of course, there are a host of other metrics as well. If you were to look at the financial metrics where you need to focus on, definitely it's the growth. This top line is the revenue, is what is actually driving your business. So like, how have you grown? Maybe quarter on quarter, year on year. What is the high level variance? You need to do a little bit of variance analysis, and so that you're able to explain to the stakeholders to see, yes, I have probably like grown by 20% and not 25% as I expected, or maybe there has been a decline in sales, and you're able to kind of drive down to the details. So the top line is one aspect of the financial metric. Then of course the profits, maybe you could even compare your profits month on month, or period to period, whatever the cost. These three are like the obvious ones. And apart from that, it could also be the productivity. How productive have you been using your resources? It could be your people, it could be your machinery, it could be your office space, whatever. So the productivity aspect. And then the recoverability, your cash flow, are you having bad debts, or are you your debtors turnover ratio and stuff like that. And then time, time is an invisible cost, I would say, because for example, if there are project delays and stuff like that, your production cycle or your revenue cycle, your turnover, everything goes for a toss. So you need to have that in the back of your mind as well. So the recoverability is important, the time is important, and it could be other things like headcount. How much have you grown? Because a lot of these businesses that are into IT is directly proportional to the headcount. So if you have 100 people, your revenue is 100 times. If you have 200, then it becomes 200. So that is could also be an important financial metric. So it quite depends on what sort of industry and what the organization wants. But by and large, broadly, I think these could be some good financial metrics that one has to look upon.
Okay, so you've focused at an organizational level. At a team level, what are some things that leaders can do to improve the financial efficiency of teams?
Right. So for teams as well, you need to have your own P&L. How much money is your team making, and what are the costs? Now, the cost, the way how it works is two ways. One could be direct cost. Like for example, for your particular project, you may be wanting to buy some particular licenses, right? So that could be directly in relation to your project, and it becomes a direct cost for you. And apart from that, you have your salaries, of course, the salary of the teams. And the other aspect many leaders tend to miss is the overheads, right? So you need to apportion a part of the overheads. Like for example, it could be your office rent, it could be your telephones, it could be the transportation costs, whatever, the general costs, a part of it which is common across the organization, and each organization has different ways to allocate it. So you must talk to your finance person and understand what percentage of overheads is actually your team consuming it. So based on that, you will be able to arrive at the profit or the margins that your team is contributing to the organization. So I think that is important for a leader to understand.
Okay, so you've explained a lot of things now, and I want to come to, some of our listeners must be wondering, oh my God, how do I start doing all this? So now you've got 3 books out. Which of these books would be the most helpful for somebody who wants to now, start taking these first steps into finance?
It's definitely What's the Finance. It's very simple. It's got practical tips and tricks that any leader can follow. If this is the problem that they have, what sort of solution they need to have, and then it has some thoughts for reflection, and also it has some stories of from very successful entrepreneurs, totally from their financial journey.
Okay, and this is available on Amazon
Yes, Amazon,
or
Flipkart.
Kindle?
Yes, yeah,
All right,
both.
good. Good. So the book is What's the Finance, and that's a good place for me as a leader to start taking these baby steps towards moving towards a financially literate leader.
Yes.
All right. So what else? What would be some other techniques that I need to focus on or I need to understand to sort of really start improving my own financial performance?
Right. So first is the financial awareness. Understand that anything and everything has a financial impact, right? So be aware, be conscious of the financial implications it would have. So first is the financial awareness, and then of course is financial education. So for you to kind of get to know what is happening, and if you're not very financially savvy, I would urge people to kind of understand, get themselves educated. Then comes your financial decision making, like as I told you, what sort of decisions you make. So what is the financial, how is the organization when I say financial impact, it's not just the profits, but also it could be on the cash flow, and that's also important. So you need to look at it from all aspects. And then the financial demands, also the financial deals that you're getting into, because the leaders are the one who are negotiating and getting into deals. It could be with your customer, it could be with your supplier, whoever. So what sort of financial deals are you getting into, and what are the important financial metrics for your business? That's something. So how would you actually look at all this? By having a financial dashboard, a dashboard that just gives you the high level pictures, the movement in your sales, the movement in your cash. It could be your headcount. I mean, whatever are the important metrics for you to track and for you to know. And this also helps you to be like hands-on. At any point in time, you just open this and it would give you a clear picture on where and how you're headed. So a dashboard, I think, is very important. You can always get your teams to do it, or your finance department will always be ready with the kind of information that you have. So it could be like graphs or a pie chart, whatever. Just by plain looking at it, you were able to kind of gauge what is happening in the business. So these are some areas that one can look into.
All right. Sangeeta, we've been speaking about at an organization team level, some thoughts at a personal level of how I should also need to be personally savvy in my own life, managing my own family. Any thoughts there?
Yes. So very simply put, your I always say, like, your cash uh, inflow is not fully in your control, because you might lose a job, your business may not do well, you may be on a furlough, whatever, or they would say, I'm going to pay you later on. So your cash inflow is not fully under your control. So what is under your control is your cash outflow. So it depends on how you want to regulate your cash outflow. So I would suggest that, if you're concerned, or if you want to take a better charge on your cash outflow, classify them as highly essential, essential, and non-essential. So your highly essential would be your basically your roti kapda and makan, things that you can't be without, and your non-essentials are the one, of course, that are really not essential for you at this point in time. So the gray area is the one, are the essential ones. Like, for example, you go grocery shopping, and then you actually go on to buy, let's say, your basic stuff, and then you look at few other things, some munchies and this and that, and then you all be obviously tempted to pick it up. So this is just a very basic example that I'm giving. So it is kind of essential, you can't say it's not essential, but at the same time, how does one manage? So I would give an example here. So you can make it two ways. So you can either say, each month my cash outflow is not going to be a certain percentage of my cash inflow. So, like, whatever percentage you're comfortable with, maybe like 30%, 40%. So ensure that you don't go beyond that. Or you can keep a fixed amount each month, like, each month my cash outflow, that is for my living, my basic expenses, is not going to go beyond a particular number. So that way you're able to kind of keep track. And I think that would help you, because you know that you have enough for savings, or your investment, or or buying your asset, or your EMI, whatever else. So if you can kind of plan it this way, I think that might help.
Yes, so true. And the importance of having cash reserves, especially for a rainy day, like the phase that we are going through, because we are learning that it's not a day, it can extend into many, many months. And then there are risks involved with these phases in terms of security of the job. So that is something that I think we would all do well to keep in mind. So, Sangeeta, as we bring our conversation to a close, one of the things that's really coming up for me is you've spoken about, of course, your book, and you've spoken about the need to have training around this. Is there anything that you do around, you know, training leaders on finance for non finance or something like that?
Yes, yes. So I do conduct workshops for leaders, and this is not the typical boring ones, where I talk about a balance sheet or a P&L, but it's more like fun, and where I drive across the message, and it's more practical, hands-on, and it has some fun and games as well. So that's how I do it.
So, where do we get information about these workshops?
Right. So I even customize it based on clients' requirements. So they can definitely get in touch with me, and I'm happy to share what I'll be able to offer. And I do it for groups, I do it one on one as well. So, however they want, I customize it based on what their end result and end goal is. For them, is it just to understand finance, or is it for them to, ensure the profits are growing, or, what exactly they're looking for? So I do it as per their requirements.
All right. So people can connect with you directly, whether they're organization leaders or they just want to attend for themselves. Sangeeta's connect details will be in the podcast description. So, Sangeeta, as we bring our conversation to a close, what are some key messages or what are some tips that you'd like to share and leave our listeners with on this subject?
Right. The key message is, finance is not boring, finance is not challenging, it's only your mindset. And the tips I'd like to leave you with are three tips. One is definitely take interest. So it's all within you. So you take interest, I'm sure it's no rocket science. You'll be able to crack it. Two is to know your numbers, overall at the organization level and especially for your department. So just scrutinize, analyze your numbers, see what the numbers are trying to communicate to you. And three is, ask for reports. It could be, how you're faring against your budgets, or, how far are you from achieving your targets, whatever. So ask for the reports that you're looking for, and then ask questions so that you can drive your team to achieve whatever goals and budgets they have to achieve. So as a leader, I think once you show the path, the team will automatically follow suit. So I would like to wish all the leaders the very best in their financial journey.
Thank you. Thank you, Sangeeta. It's been really inspiring and it's been fun having you. You've sort of taken some of the seriousness and the dread that many of us have of finance. So I also encourage our listeners to check out Sangeeta's YouTube channel. The link will be there, and you can also check out her website. And if you have any questions or you need any support, remember, she's not only a finance professional, she's also an executive coach, and so much more. So do feel free to reach out to her, and also check out her book, What the Finance. So Sangeeta, thank you, and we look forward to an opportunity in the near future to having you with us on the show.
Thank you, Ajay. It was great being part of your show. Thank you so much for being a wonderful host.
And that's it for today. Thank you for listening. Please connect with us on coachtoolbox@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to follow, subscribe, and review this channel. Details of our ICF approved coach training programs and our services as executive coaches and coaching supervisors are on www.globalcoachtrust.org. See you in our next session.